Rolling and action. Okay, this is the SIG Docs weekly meeting on the 29th of September 2020. I'm Tim Bannister. Jim Angel, I think you're going to lead until you've got to disappear. Yep, you got it. Jim Angel, co-chair, and it looks like we have Brad and Abigail joining us here today. So a light crowd. And I believe all returning contributors. Somtochi, I'm not sure if you're a new contributor or not.
Hello, I'm a shadow in the release doc team.
Oh, perfect. What I will do is share my screen. Awesome. Okay. Cool. Yep. Oh, new contributors already there. I put it in twice. Let me take the second one out. Okay, updates and reminders. We did not have a pull request wrangler for this week. I have jumped in. I will take the chair this week. We need a pull request wrangler for next week. So is anyone willing to take that slot?
I will, Tim. You know, I'd left some buffer when I created the schedule for just such a wonderful occasion. And so I'm the buffer.
Okay, cool. Let me clear the highlight here. Thanks, Brad.
Sure.
Cool. So, yeah, approvers, make sure you know your scheduled PR wrangler shifts. Back to you, Jim. We're going to tag in each item. I like it. Over to you. It's like the news. Awesome. No, appreciate that, Tim. Thank you for stepping up too for the PR wrangler shifts there as well. Thank you, Brad. Definitely appreciate that. So moving along to the release 120 for updates. Somtochi, is that something you could provide us with?
I know not much has been done for now, and probably I should leave that to my lead, to the lead of the team. That's Anna.
Perfect.
Yeah, we're having like meetings and a list of pull requests basically, but yeah, she'll give like more updates.
Awesome. Yeah, not a problem at all. And do know that early on in the release cycle, especially for docs, it's relatively slow. A lot of it is onboarding the shadows and getting folks, you know, started there. So I think some progress is awesome. It's definitely a very fair update early on in the release cycle. So moving on to the blog update. Tim, is that something you could potentially fill us in on? I saw one blog article, which is the first of article mirroring from the K8s or Kubernetes.dev website. This is a new thing. Like, we've not had, as far as I know, websites that we are willing to mirror from. So I believe that the policy is that we want what the old world of print used to call first world serialization rights. We wanted to publish the article first, and then because it's open source, you can go and copy it and attribute it. But you couldn't take an article you'd published on your own blog and then submit it to Kubernetes. But you can if it is from another bit of Kubernetes. I think that we need the blog team to make a bit of clarification on that. Maybe we might need to update some guides just to make that super clear to people that you can do that. But in terms of does it make sense? Yeah, I think we should do this mirroring. Like, that's an opinion and seems reasonable. There's also an article come in from CockroachDB. Some people there have described how they wrote their own scheduling plugin to solve a problem.
Interrupt. There's like 12 people in the other meeting.
Oh my word!
Hey. Let me go rescue them and guide them here. 1 minute.
Awesome. Thank you, Zach.
It wasn't that we weren't popular. We are popular.
I had not thought of this.
We are there's a bunch of people in the other meeting.
I think we should change the link in the agenda, right?
The link in the agenda should be to this meeting here.
Oh, no, I mean like in the calendar, sorry.
Oh, and that should have also been updated as well. I'm not sure if it was updated.
So basically, if people were subscribed to the Google group for SIG Docs, they would have gotten an update about the meeting link. If it's a copy of a calendar or independent or detached from there, they'd have to rely on the Slack announcements, I'm guessing. That might have been what happened.
So at first, like, we realized that you are still writing in docs, but you are not in meeting. So we thought, like, what's happened?
You know, normally I'm always the person who's in the wrong meeting. And so the fact that I somehow made it here by just complete random luck, I'm going to go and get lottery tickets today.
Tim,
I suggest it.
we've been reunited. How wonderful.
Yes. I guess maybe for this first meeting, we probably should have just posted the URL in Slack and just get everyone on the same page there. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm wondering also, because I feel like I copied the invite to this meeting, or I was like directly added to this invite rather than added via the mailing list. I wonder if I need to like drop and rejoin this.
Yeah, that was one thing that I learned recently too, is that, and I had to do this for personally. I was on the Google Groups mailing list. I'd get like from the Google Groups and I'd copy the calendar invite to my work invite. And it wasn't until recently I realized that you could have multiple emails subscribed to that Google group. And once you're subscribed, then you get the invites from the group where you don't need to copy it, maintain the to list and all that good stuff. So
yeah, I'm wondering if that's what I need to do.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if that's what needs to, you know what? I will test that out after this meeting. I will post my results in the Docs channel, and then we will all figure out how to be less confused.
Awesome. And fair warning to that, it could take up to 24 hours. So I joined the group and I was like, what the heck? I haven't received any meeting invites. And then 24 hours later, I had them. So all good is there. Do we have everybody from the other meeting, do we think?
I think so.
I think so.
Cool. Well, we can give a brief recap. So I'm hosting this first half of the meeting here. Tim's going to take over at the top of the hour. From new contributors, I didn't see the list of all folks who have joined besides Samtochi. Is there anyone else who would like to introduce themselves?
Sure, I could. Sorry.
No, after you.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I'm Kristen Martin. I'm SIG Release 120 Docs Shadow. I'm working with Anna and happy to join you on the meeting today. Thanks.
Awesome, welcome.
Hi, I'm Nate Waddington. I'm new to CNCF working with Celeste and Zach. Hello.
Awesome, welcome.
I guess I should tell you what I do. I'm a dev advocate specifically working on docs.
And hi, my name's Ashley. This is my first time attending a meeting, but I've been technically part of the group for quite a while. So yeah, thanks for welcoming me, and I'm glad I found out where the new link was for the new chat room. I am a technical writer at SaltStack, which there's just a lot of crossover between Kubernetes and SaltStack.
Awesome. Welcome. I know a lot of people happy to hear we have more technical writers joining us.
Thanks.
Cool. So moving on to the updates reminders, the PR Wrangler this week is Tim. Tim stepped up because we didn't have a PR Wrangler, so much thanks there. As well as next week, there was a conflict and Brad stepped up there, so much appreciated. And moving on to the Release 120 updates, Samtochi updated that there was some progress. I'm not sure, Anna, if you'd like to give us additional information, but it sounds like things are on track there.
Yeah. Yeah, everything's on track, so no addition comments there.
That works. And then just reiterating, since I know we had new folks joining, I'm doing like a speed run to get us all caught up and synchronized here. From the blog update, Tim mentioned that there was one blog article that is going to be mirrored from K8s Dev or vice versa. And this is the first time where we've had dual source content or, dual blogs. And this is a new thing that might need some further discussion from the blog side. And it's more about who publishes first and where is that source copied from. And most likely it'll be published on the Kubernetes blog and then copied over to K8s Dev. Anyone else in the call have any other comments on the blog situation or updates? All right, moving on to the localization work group update, and I'll kick this one over to Brad.
Sure. So basically, we are ready to kick off our localization subgroup. And we identified a group of participants that are interested. And if anyone on this call is interested as well, Slack me. We're going to get the details out. But anybody who's interested is welcome to participate. We're going to have a monthly meeting. We're going to do most of the stuff on our localization Slack channel. But we will have a monthly meeting. And the time that seemed to work best for everyone was 11 a.m. Eastern. So odds and ends that I need to worry about, and you know, Jim or Zach help. You know, make sure we have access to our Zoom account. Do we need a meeting invite, a calendar invite? Like, you know, is that a common convention that we like to use here, or is that not necessary? I will certainly put together a Google Doc that looks like the documentation, the weekly meeting, upcoming meeting doc that you're seeing now, but I'll do one for the subgroup that, you know, has the mission at the top. It has the weekly agenda. We'll have the information on how to join the meeting. So I'll put together a Google Doc. I assume that would be standard procedure, and then link it into our localization page in our documentation. So I plan on doing all that soon. The one thing I wanted to discuss was just to make sure, Jim, that we were hitting the right deliverables. So as I understand it, just to level set everyone, we have a large number of localization teams now. Some are building their own tools to help with certain aspects of their processes. And the subgroup was really meant to make sure that we've got the different localization teams talking and working on, you know, if there's ways they can share tools with each other, great, but also worrying about that they were all documenting things in different places, right, Jim? So is the idea that to focus everybody on getting their content on that localization page in the documentation, or were there certain subdirectories? I just wanted to get clarification, Jim, on what your expectation was there.
Yeah, and I definitely have some comments or suggestions here, but I don't think it's necessarily all, you know, my doing. There's a lot of folks on this call who can, you know, contribute very more so effectively than I can when it comes to localization. But you hit the nail on the head. Overall, it was the fact that there was so many different localization groups running their own kind of sprint or marathon, and having an avenue where we can synchronize all those efforts and to make sure there isn't duplication or duplicated work there. You know, one example of that I saw recently was part of the release cycle. The release lead reaches out to the localization team. Maybe there's a better way that, you know, communication or handoff can happen for the release team if there's a point of contact there, or a source document for like an introduction. That's a very pinpoint example, but I just think there's so many different moving parts here, and it's grown to be such a large undertaking of SIG Docs. I think there's a lot of opportunity there to make sure we're not duplicating efforts there. And I would look heavily into what, if Irva or Tim or some of the other people who have had more involvement with localization, if they have any comments about that direction.
I'm going to chip in, Jim. I guess what my contribution to localization has been landing PRs in the English localization just before someone, or maybe just after someone has translated the previous massively out of date page that I've revised. So I think there is definitely payoff in synchronizing, because there will be people who, you know, must be fuming when, like, they look at their work, it's landed 2 days later, there's a massive 500 line diff. Let's try and cut that out. I think it's a really good idea.
But now, how would you address that, Tim? You're thinking that we'll use the localization subgroup team as a way to give a heads up and say, hey, there are big changes coming to this section of the docs or this concept page, and using it as sort of a warning system of what to expect? Is that what you're thinking, or something else?
I would be keen to find out what localization teams want from English, the upstream localization, and understanding what people want, will help us work out how to deliver that.
You mean what they want with regards to how they get notified, what changes are gonna happen, or I'm not sure I understood.
Yeah. Well, I'm guessing here at what the pain point might be, and I'd rather know that it's a pain point and how it actually impacts people.
Yeah, well, as part of the subgroup, we're definitely going to identify pain points for the localization teams and make sure they're getting exposed and made visible to the group, the leadership team here. So we'll definitely do that for sure.
And I think part of what we're talking about here is great topics for conversation for that working group localization meeting. And then when decisions are made or saying, hey, this process works well, this one doesn't, maybe surface that back up at a regular status check-in here for the regular docs meeting.
Yep, absolutely.
Cool.
Okay. Yep, so that's the plan. Those are the types of topics we'll be dealing with. And obviously, if there's other things that come up, I'm sure we're happy to expand the scope to handle it.
Awesome. Sounds good. Any other questions or comments on the localization working group? Sorry, Zach. I think you might be on a weird mic or something.
Wow, it's muffled.
You're like underwater, maybe.
It's like Charlie Brown's teacher.
All right. So I'm going to be a little selfish here because I got to split. So I'm going to jump to a few of the items I have towards the bottom, and then we'll start back up at the KubeCon NA action item. So a quick issue in PR that I posted there is just some permission changes. So some folks with approvers in K website, if they don't mind taking a peek at the issue 24170, all it's doing is removing some emeritus approvers and reviewers from the Kubernetes teams, as well as some inactive folks from getting scheduled to the PR Wranglers the PR Wrangler schedule. So not a big deal there, just wanted to raise awareness. And moving on to the process, you might have seen in the SIG Docs channel, I created a slew of reminders. This is very selfishly for myself. I tend to forget about the quarterly planning, the quarterly review meetings that come up regularly. And so what I did is I ended up scheduling a Slackbot reminder that would come into the Kubernetes chat and say, hey, start thinking about planning a quarterly review or a meeting there coming up. For those who aren't aware, SIG Docs as a special interest group does a quarterly review where we take a look at bigger projects or bigger accomplishments. And we take a look at what was accomplished in that quarter and what we'd like to plan for the next quarter. So these are a lot more of a wide set goal as opposed to, merging PRs, keeping up with the daily, cruft of, documentation. So I just want to give a heads up. That's what those reminders are for. The other thing I wanted to bring up too is, traditional quarter might look like it starts in January, obviously every, 3 months or so there with a synchronization point. One thing I've noticed in docs over the past couple of years is around the holidays, a lot of momentum is lost. Understandably, folks, take vacation, take holiday. And so traditionally what I've seen is that last quarter, that Q4 review, Q1 planning tends to take place in November-ish, December. When we had KubeCon in November, that made a lot of sense. When needed, we also had it in December. So there's kind of a bigger gap between the Q4 review and the Q1 review. But if you look at when I set those the alerts, there's April 1st, July 1st, October 1st, and December 1st. So with saying that, we're going to get pinged on October 1st to start thinking about quarterly review that's coming in the pipelines. I wanted to bring everyone's attention to that. I have a link to the Q3 doc for reference in this blurb here. But we can definitely start bringing up, when do we want to meet? How do we want to parse that out? And do we want to do a short little sprint in between Q3 and Q4 here? Or potentially merge them all into one? It just really depends on what folks are thinking. Any questions or comments on the quarterly review that will be coming down the pipelines? Cool. Then the last item that I threw on the agenda here was that just showing awareness that our YouTube playlist is kind of out of whack. It hasn't been updated since February, so I'm working with some of the folks on Slack about fixing that and making sure their YouTube playlist is up to date. If you're not sure about our playlist, I believe I thought we had it linked in the docs here. It's for sure on our SIG community page, which I'll add a link in there later. And moving on to KubeCon NA. And it says, do we need to somehow polish the slides that we have? I think, is this Irva that brought this up?
Yes, because I'm just curious since it's near and we still not have a fixed things that we can show. I don't know, like.
So, yeah. I mean, I submitted a deck. I don't know if you got to see it. I know some of the folks saw it. It needs the skin changed because it says all IBM all over it, and I mean, we got to unblue the blue wash there. But it certainly should be. How much time do we have? What do they give us? Is it 2 hours, 45 minutes? I can't remember which.
That I'm not sure of, but it definitely is coming up soon. And just real quick for context for folks on this call, this year's KubeCon is a little different than it has been in years past. In years past, we would do a contributor summit and not traditionally be represented in the traditional special interest group track on KubeCon or in KubeCon. So besides the contributor summit, we really haven't had a ton of official presentations. And what you'd see in the past with other SIGs is you'd see that there's a intro to a special interest group and then there's a deep dive. So for example, there's an intro to the SIG release team and then there's a deep dive into the SIG release team or Contribex or what have you. And historically, Docs hasn't been part of that. So there's been two changes this year. The first one being that SIG Docs is going to take part in the regular track. There is no contributor summit planned as of yet. And the second part is they're no longer splitting it with an introduction and a deep dive. It's kind of like all in one right now. So the discussion now that we're bringing up that Eva brought up is that that we need to decide what kind of content we're covering, who's owning the decks, who's producing that. And I think there's a lot of decisions to be made. And if I had to make a guess, I would imagine that that this might just be a separate meeting where it just heads down. Let's create planning and go from there. But I'm open for any questions or comments on this this meeting.
So it's probably a short, separate meeting. I would agree with you, Jim. I've actually been through this because I've led many times the SIG IBM Cloud Provider, and that's gone through the cycle of intro plus deep dive, and then that's also been combined into a single session as well. So I'm living this. I don't know how much time we have. I wish I knew that off the top of my head. But suffice it to say, what I believe happens is we typically will have a certain amount of material that we present and get our audience excited about what we do. And you know, if it's, hey, we want to get more contributors, whatever our purpose is, that's what we focus on. And then you typically leave some time for questions and discussion. And so I think it's up to us to figure out how much time we have. Is it just the intro material that I provided? Because there was I think it was Celeste or someone had mentioned, hey, we could really also use some of our time to talk about best practices for how to do technical writing, which I think would be very valuable as well. So I think it just comes down to figuring out how much time we have, what are the top priority topics that we want to cover and who wants to cover them, and then how much time we want to leave for discussion. And then I believe we do have to hurry because if I recall, we do have to record this meeting, the content ahead of time, and then we do the questions live.
Yeah, this is a separate meeting, I think, but I think what would be good to do in this meeting is who needs to be in that separate meeting, just like a quick hands.
Yep.
I have one. Go ahead.
Oh no, I'm just trying to think who needs to be here. Like, we just need to write that down. That's the important thing, I think.
We could also announce it on Slack as well. And I'm sorry, go ahead, Savita.
So Tim and I are planning to work. I mean, we had talked about, I need to start that. So there is this contributor summit where they are planning to record everything, and previously the milestone was 1.20, and I don't know if that's going to happen for KubeCon NA, but it will eventually happen. All those whatever Brad presented in the I have Brad's slides. Whatever he presented, it's going to go in a video. Probably we'll add more contents, and we'll work through do some live demo, something of that sort. So do we need to coordinate or is it totally unrelated? I would love to have them coordinated because it's video that's going to be there somewhere else. And I'm not sure how they are planning to use it. But all the sessions for the beginners, contributor summit, and the intermediate and everything is getting recorded.
So does it sounds like we have two presentations. I just want to make sure I understood. It sounds like we've got a presentation as part of the summit, and then, I mean, as part of the conference, and then there's also something for the contributor summit. Because I remember Zach asked some of us to sign up, I think, for the actual KubeCon conference intro deep dive presentation. Am I right, Jim, or am I confused?
Yeah, that's correct. It sounds like this is two separate issues or two separate events, but it would be a good idea to stay coordinated between the efforts. I think.
Probably some reuse, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So how about this? Because now I'm concerned. Let's. I'm sorry. I'm gonna dictate this maybe a little bit. Maybe if you signed up for a thing on behalf of SIG Docs, post in the channel, and then we'll have a tally of what things we've signed up for collectively. And then we can like divide and conquer / stay in coordination from there.
Are you talking about in Slack posting what's coming up or what you signed up for?
Yeah, like if you signed up for a thing for KubeCon on behalf of SIG Docs, I think that's the first thing we need to
but I think there's but hold on, I think there's only two. I think Zach asked us for names and said who wants to do the whatever, right? And several of us volunteered. And then it sounded like there was another, then there was a separate thing, which was the contributor summit, right? And I think Irvi, you were driving that as well, and Tim. And then we had the call last week or a week before, I can't remember, where we didn't have enough folks on the call, Celeste, to confirm that there was just two separate work items there. Is there, I mean, just real quick, is there any more than that that anybody knows of? Because I think it's those only those two.
I think so as well. And Tim, you had your hand raised?
Yeah. Also, I'm aware you said you were going to leave at 11 Pacific time, Jim.
Whoops.
Slip around to the door.
Okay, so the thing that I believe I'm signed up with Savitha to record a video, I think that was mentioned in Slack like months ago, but Slack's history search is not great, so I'm not going to go and even try. But that is for a new contributor workshop. That I have this down as NCW in my notes. And I think that's very much related to things that happen at KubeCon in person normally, but that's what it was for.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's more of like a contributor experience, new contributor workshop, as opposed to the official KubeCon SIG track for SIG Docs. So there's two things, and I believe we're on the same page. It still would be good to figure out who signed up for what in the Slack channel. We could split that into two. Mm-hmm. And real quick, is there any other questions or comments on that? Okay, hearing nothing. Real quick, I just wanted to touch on the issues in PR section before sneaking out here. We had that umbrella issue opened up for third-party content removal, and we had that targeted for completion by release of 119, and now we're starting the 120 cycle. So what I wanted to put on folks' radar is just awareness that we should look at what it's going to take to wrap this up. Is there anything outstanding? It's going to, of course, be ongoing effort to remove third-party content. But at the same time, is it possible to wrap up some of these issues with the agreed upon deliverables for 119 and just raising awareness around that? And if anyone needs any context further on that issue, they can click on the umbrella issue. It links into the CUP. It talks about why we're doing it. And it talks about, you know, what happens after the 120 and later releases. So let's keep an eye on that. Let's make sure we're figuring out what it takes to close that out and going from there. Any questions or comments? Cool. With that, I will kick it over to Tim to take it from here, and I appreciate everyone's time. Thank you.
Okay. Right. So that was Jim on third-party content removal. Nate, you've got a comment, an issue about Minikube.
Yes, I was looking at doing a quick text update to remove some information about hypervisor from the Minikube install, and then was talking with Celeste and Zach and thinking, well, actually, it looks like a lot of the Minikube install information might be better suited being left on the Minikube site. And we can provide a link to it rather than trying to keep our site up to date as it gets stale fairly quickly and fairly regularly, I would expect. So that's what this is about. And the reason we wanted to bring it up here was because there's a lot of traffic on that site, and so we didn't want to yank it and change it without sort of bringing it up to the group first.
Okay. Anyone got any thoughts or comments? I'm going to chip in with a couple of opinions then. We can redirect. So one thing you can totally do is you can configure a redirect from the existing page to the new one. I think that might be a viable thing to do. So that's my first comment. And the other thing is we can take any sections of the page that's there on the Kubernetes website and sort of donate them to Minikube. And I think, Nate, if you're looking at cutting out that content, it might be worth looking to see if there's anything that you think is really missing from the documentation we're planning to link to, and you know, suggest a pull request and say, look, we're going to delete this, but would you please like this?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think that makes sense. When you say taking sections of the existing page and donating them to ours, would that be an automated update, or is that something that we would need to continue to revisit as their site updates?
It would be like a copy and paste. We've got some markdown. If you judge that markdown would be really missing from the revised, after the change, that particular bit of markdown text would be missing, and there would be a net loss to the people who want to run Minikube on their laptop community. That's a thing you can do.
Okay.
Can I add something?
Go ahead.
Hey, there wasn't an existing PR, and I'm not sure if it's still open, but that was by Thomas Stromberg, is it? And I think he actually heavily edited or reduced the current page. So you might want to look at that or try to search for that. So it still maintained a link or at least a page in the Kubernetes docs, but it pretty much forwarded all the traffic to the actual Minikube repository. Have you seen that PR? Is that PR still around? I can dig it up if you need.
I haven't seen it yet, no.
That link, if you could put it in either the agenda or the issue that Nate is linked to, that would be fantastic, Karen. Okay, would anyone like to add anything else about this change? Anyone horrified by the concept of removing it?
No, I'm happy to see it go.
Cool. Right, let's move on to, did we talk about the issue? Oh yeah, we did. So Jim already talked about that. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing so I can actually see people's faces and see if anyone puts their hand up. Anyone got any more questions? Anything people want to talk about?
Zach? One possible note on meetings at KubeCon to muddy the waters even further. The CNCF tech writers will be hosting an open hours specifically for tech docs, not limited to Kubernetes, but across all of the CNCF landscape projects. So I will make sure to signal clearly how that is different from everything else. So there are 3 moving pieces of docs. in the KubeCon landscape, and I will do my best to make sure that that is clearly signaled what is what.
Well, there goes my credibility. I just proclaimed for sure, 100%, there were only 2 moving parts, but now I have to just be wrong again.
That's accurate. Now we just have to put a footnote on it.
So quick question for the subgroup: do I need a meeting invite, or is it just okay to just? What do you recommend? I'm looking to the chairs for advice there. Or is it just we announce it and announce it and announce it?
That's a really good question. I know that the Kubernetes community repo has some guidelines around organizing things like Slack channels, even getting a YouTube channel if you want to record your meetings. Let me find the guidance for getting a new Slack channel getting a meeting invite in the community repo, and let me share that out.
Okay. And then
or
who
you
should
can
I?
look as well too.
Okay. Well, no, I was just looking for advice because I'm a little lost there on that. And then who should I look for on making sure I've got the Zoom information? I assume I can use the same Zoom meeting that we use for this because it's at a different time slot.
I don't know if Zoom will allow that. I think Zoom may disallow activity or like confine activity to a certain window around a time slot.
Okay.
But honestly, I don't know. But let's.
So we have a Zoom account, right?
We do. Yeah, one of the chairs, of whom I am not, can help you put together a meeting invite.
Perfect. I'll work on that.
I'll just chuck that in the agenda. /minutes. Okay, so we've talked a bit more about localization. We talked quite a bit about KubeCon. Any more things? Okay, and it's your last chance to contribute to this weekly meeting, people.
I'll be there in a minute.
I think that is an unmuting type issue. Right, your last chance to contribute to this weekly meeting, people. Oh, Karen, you're back. I'm just doing the close down, but did you have anything to add? Well, that's a SIG meeting. Thanks, everyone. See you next week.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.